Hi folks, you're listening to episode 4 of the 59th Minute Fantasy Premier League podcast hosted by myself, the FPL General. I'm recording on Tuesday the 13th of March, so game week 30 is behind us and we're looking ahead to blank game week 31 now in this episode. I'm on my own again in this episode. I know I said last week I was hoping to have David Isaac on as my first guest. I did have him lined up for tonight, but I was playing around with things in the last couple of days, Skype recorders and things like that, and there's just a lot more to it than I thought. And I didn't want to go recording with David tonight, not being 100% confident about how it would turn out quality wise and sound wise and things like that. So I'm just going to spend a bit more time getting to know the ins and outs of recording with a guest. Before I get somebody on. So just me again. So it's going to be a short one again. Hopefully stick to around the half an hour mark again for this one. The running order of this episode, I'm going to quickly review game week 30. Then I'm going to look at the player pool that I'm looking at for game week 31. So I have a short list of about 14 or 15 players that I'm looking at for blank game week 31 for possible transfers this week. I'll talk then about what transfers I may make this week. I'm not sure yet, but I'll talk about the maybe 4 or 5 players that I'm actually considering bringing in. I'll talk about captaincy as well. It's pretty obvious this week. And then I'll finish off by answering some of the questions I got on Twitter today. So to kick things off, game week 30 was okay. It was 43 points. Things were looking very good for me after Saturday and Sunday's games. I broke into the top 1k for the first time this season, so I was pretty happy with that. And I was pretty confident going into the Monday Night Football as well because I had Kevin De Bruyne and Shaqiri. But both of them did nothing for me, so that seen me slip back out of the top 1k. Man City's clean sheet didn't help me either. So things were looking really good Saturday. I was up to about 900 overall. But I actually ended up with a red arrow then. 43 points gave me a slight red arrow from 1,209th. I'm now at 1,302nd, so fell about 100 places, which is fine. 43 points came mainly from Mahrez, Pope and Schindler. So pretty sure they were all on Saturday, so that's why things were looking so good after those fixtures. 9 points for Pope again. He's been amazing this season, possibly my player of the season. Schindler, he was my free transfer. Got him in for Ogbonna and got 7 points, which was nice because Huddersfield hadn't kept a clean sheet in quite a while, so that was nice. Nice that he got that when I brought him in, and I think he got a bonus point as well. That was one of the main reasons I went for him over Zanka, was because Schindler's been. He tends to pick up the bonus points when Huddersfield do keep a clean sheet, so that was nice. Mahrez again, 11 points. So I got rid of Sterling 3 weeks ago for Mahrez, and he's outscored him by about, I think it's 24 points to 6, roughly, something like that. So that turned out to be a good move. Watching the Monday Night Football, Sterling got an assist. Then he went through one-on-one and missed. I was pretty happy to see him stumble over and miss the one-on-one chance, because obviously that would have hurt my rank even more, because a lot of my rivals still have Sterling. But the Mahrez move has turned out very well indeed. Apart from that, the Kane captain obviously went off injured after about half an hour, but I know a lot of people got hit by that, so it wasn't really a big issue. Salah blanked, Firmino blanked, Shaqiri, De Bruyne, as I said. Wilson again blanked. He's just been a nightmare. But again, blank game week 31's coming up, so I'm going to hold him, and hopefully he can repay the faith in game week 31. I thought he might actually get dropped last week, but he did start. Obviously he didn't do anything, but it was against Spurs, so hopefully he can keep his place for 31. I know Defoe is pushing for a start. Josh King is probably going to come back in as well, but hopefully Wilson can keep his place and get on the score sheet. Van Dijk and Alonso blanked for me as well. Obviously, as a Man U fan, I was happy to see them beat Liverpool 2-1, but it didn't bode very well for my triple Liverpool, Van Dijk, Salah and Firmino. Only got 5 points between them, but that's the way it goes. And I've got those 3 obviously for this week, and hopefully they'll get a lot more points in 31 than they did in 30. So as I say, 43 points, slight red arrow, overall rank now 1,302nd. So looking to push on now over the next couple of weeks with wildcards and chips still to play. Moving on now, looking ahead to the dreaded blank game week 31, which is coming up this weekend. There's only 4 fixtures, I'll go through them again quickly. Liverpool, Watford, Bournemouth play West Brom, Stoke against Everton, and Huddersfield against Crystal Palace. So nothing, pretty poor fixtures really. Liverpool are the only team you want to triple up on really for this weekend. My current situation for the blank game week, I've got 6 players plus 2 free transfers, so I can get to 8 starters without taking any hits. I've already got a triple up on Liverpool. I've got Salah, Firmino and Van Dijk. I've got Shaqiri, I've got Wilson, and I've got Schindler, who I brought in last week. So as I say, 6 players with 2 free transfers this week will bring me to 8, and I'm more than happy to play with 8 this weekend, given the quality of the fixtures. I'd be quite hopeful that 8 players will give me a green arrow this weekend, and at this point in time, I'm not planning to take any hits to bring in any additional players, but that could change, because I know once the weekend gets closer, I'll be more tempted to take a few hits, maybe to get to 9 or 10 players. But as of now, I'm going to say I'm going to go with 8 players without taking any hits. People who follow me will know I'm very conservative with hits. I think I've only taken 2 points hits this season, and I don't really plan on taking any for the blank game week. The only players I would really be comfortable taking a -4 for 31 are Liverpool players, and I've already got 3 of them, so I don't really see the need to take any hits this weekend if I can get to 8 players. In addition to that, the 8 that I have Loftus-Cheek on the bench as well, and been a couple of pictures going around this week that he's back at Crystal Palace now, and he's back in training, and going by his quotes, he seems to feel as if he's fit enough himself to play. So that would be a nice surprise if Loftus-Cheek can get some game time in 31. Even if he just plays and gets 2 points, that would be great. An extra player. I've also got John Joe Kenny as well, who has a fixture, but don't expect him to play because Coleman's back now. But I will hold on to Loftus-Cheek and Kenny, just for the small chance that they might get some game time. Obviously Coleman's had a very serious leg break, and he could obviously break down at any time as well. It's very, very common that we see players picking up muscle injuries after coming back from serious layoffs. So obviously if Coleman picked up something during the week, Kenny would more than likely come in at right back. So I'm not going to move Kenny out with my 2 free transfers. I'll just hold on to him just in case something goes wrong with Coleman. Hopefully not, because Coleman's had enough bad luck, and we don't want to see him getting injured again. So for the watch list section of the podcast this week, I'm focusing only on the blank game week 31 teams. And as I said, I've got about 14 or 15 players written down here. These are the 14 players that I'm looking at possibly bringing in this week for the blank. I've already got 3 Liverpool, so I'm not looking at any of those. I don't want any Watford players because they're playing away to Liverpool, and I don't expect them to get anything. And I also don't want any West Brom players because they are West Brom and they're just rubbish, so I'm not going near them. West Brom are away to Bournemouth, so I would expect Bournemouth to win that game. So I'm looking at 5 teams. I'm looking at Bournemouth, Everton, Stoke, Huddersfield and Crystal Palace for my transfers this week. So ruling out Liverpool, Watford and West Brom. I'll start with Bournemouth. So I've already got Wilson. Already mentioned he's been a nightmare, but hopefully he can do something for us. Those of us that have kept him for the last couple of weeks, hopefully he can do something in the blank to repay us before we move him on, I'm sure, in game week 32. The other Bournemouth players I'm interested in are number 1, Stanislas. Very impressed with him in recent weeks. He's a player. He's a player who's been very unlucky with injuries over the past couple of seasons, but when he plays, he's very effective. I think he's got about 3 goals in his last 6, roughly, something like that. He scored against Tottenham, and he hit the bar as well just before he scored, so just shows the threat he poses. Again, a home game against West Brom, I would expect Stanislas to do some damage, so he's high on my watch list this week. Josh King is another. He obviously, we know what he done last season. He didn't play game week 30 because he had some kind of neck injury, I think it was, but I think it was a pretty minor injury, and he's probably going to start game week 31. I'm probably unlikely to get him though, because I've already got Wilson up front, and I don't really want to double up on Bournemouth strikers. But if you don't have Wilson, I think I'd be opting for Josh King over him this week. No interest in Bournemouth defenders or my friend Asmir, because they've only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 17 games in the league. So even though West Brom are pants, I still think they'll probably score against Bournemouth. So when it comes to Bournemouth, I'm focusing on midfield and attackers. Next up, it's Stoke. So Stoke are home to Everton. I've already got Shaqiri, so I think most people are probably going to have Shaqiri because he's having a good season, and he's one of the players who could deliver in 31. So if you don't have him, I would recommend getting him. The other Stoke players I'm interested in are Jack Butland. I think Stoke can get a clean sheet there. Everton have the stats have been going around the last couple of weeks about how poor Everton have been when it comes to shots and things like that, ranked 20th in the league. So they've been pretty poor up front, Everton, so I would be quite hopeful Butland could get a clean sheet. And obviously we've seen in recent weeks the bonus point system loves him, even when he scores own goals, so there's always a chance of bonus points with Butland as well. The right back, Moritz Bauer, is another player who's impressed me. He impressed me again against Man City on Monday night, although Stoke were pretty poor. Bauer gets forward. He's a very pacey wing back, so he's another player. Obviously, if Stoke get the clean sheet, Bauer could get you some attacking returns as well. So he's another player I'm interested in for Stoke. It's only those two really. So I've got Shaqiri, and Butland and Bauer are the only 2 others I'm interested in from Stoke. Stoke play Everton. I don't currently have any Everton players apart from Kenny, who's probably not going to play. I was probably close to getting Walcott a couple of weeks back when a lot of people were getting him in after he made an instant impact after moving to Everton. But thankfully I've avoided him because I think he's probably got 2 points most weeks for the last 4 or 5 game weeks, which has been frustrating for those who brought him in earlier with an eye on game week 31. But he also had a bit of form as well, so thankfully I avoided him. He is a player I am interested in though, as a 1 week punt for 31. If he's fit. I know he's yellow flagged, he's got some kind of injury, so I'll wait for more news on him towards the end of the week. But we know what Theo can do. He's a player who can get 15 points any given week, and against Stoke you would fancy that his chances of getting something, so he is on the watch list. Pickford as well. Stoke Everton could easily be a 0-0 game, so Butland and Pickford are 2 goalkeepers I'm interested in. I don't have a goalkeeper for the blank, so if I decide to get one in, it'll probably Pickford or Butland will be in the running for my goalkeeper spot, but I'm undecided yet. I may just go without a goalkeeper for 31. I'll probably focus my transfers on outfield players. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Continuing with Everton players on the watch list, I mentioned Pickford. Baines and Coleman is the big one. There's a lot of debate about which one to go for. Obviously, Coleman probably offers more attack and threat from open play, but then Baines could have penalties now because Big Sam said that Rooney's off them now that he missed. So there's probably going to be a bit of a competition for penalties if Everton get one, but I think Baines probably would be the man to get it. I know Allardyce mentioned Tosun as well after the game, saying he would think he'd be interested in them, But I think just Baines' record of taking penalties in the Premier League, it's as good as anybody's, and I think he would win over the new guy if Everton get a penalty. So we need to weigh up whether we want to go for Baines because he's on penalties more than likely, or Coleman because he offers more attacking threat from open play. Going back to last season, around, I think it was around February time, I had to make the same decision whether to go Baines or Coleman, and I opted for Baines last season, and I ended up, Coleman outscored him 55-26, I think it was, over the course of about 6 game weeks. So it was a painful 50-50 decision that went wrong for me last season. That probably will influence my decision this season if I decide to go for one of those guys. I just prefer Coleman because of he's more threat from open play, and as I say, we're not 100% sure that Baines is going to be on penalties, and the likelihood is, like, the chances of Everton getting a penalty is pretty low anyway. So if I do decide to go for an Everton defender, I'm going to go for Coleman. Obviously he's from Donegal like myself as well, so that's a factor. I felt very bad last season going against my fellow county man, so I'm probably not going to do that this season. So that's Everton covered. Pickford, Coleman, Baines and Theo are the ones I'm looking at. Fourth team, Huddersfield, play their home to Palace. So I brought in Schindler last week, got me a clean sheet and a bonus, so hopefully something similar from him would be nice in the blank. The other Huddersfield players I'm interested in are the goalkeeper Lossell, so I could go for the defensive double up with Lossell and Schindler and bank on the Huddersfield clean sheet. Steve Mooney, the striker, he's kind of been hot and cold this season, but I think the potential's there for him to do well in 31 against Palace. I think he had 8 shots against Swansea at the weekend. Now I know Swansea went down to 10 men after about 11 minutes, so the stats are slightly skewed because of that, but I do think Mooney offers I think he's a good option as a striker this week, and he's definitely one I'm looking at. The Huddersfield midfield it's a bit of a minefield. There's a lot of options there. You've got Van La Parra and Pritchard, who I mentioned on last week's podcast. You've got Aaron Moy back now as well, who did well for me earlier in the season, in the first couple of weeks of the season I had him. And Tom Ince is there as well. We forget about Tom Ince because he hasn't been getting any attacking returns this season, but I think he was joint top with Mooney for goal attempts in game week 30. I think he had 8 goal attempts as well, so the potential is there for Ince to do something as well, but obviously a lot of people are going to avoid him because he hasn't been doing anything. But he could be a sure differential for 31. Now I'm unlikely to go for Ince, but if you're brave enough, he is worth considering, I think. So that's Huddersfield covered. I've got Schindler, I'm looking at Lossell, and I'm looking at Mooney. I'm probably going to avoid their midfielders because it's just hard to nail the right one when there's so many options there. Crystal Palace. So, as I say, I've got Loftus-Cheek, who's probably not going to play, but there is a slight chance that he comes in, so I'm going to keep hold of him just in case he does. The other Palace players I'm interested in are our old favourite, Patrick Van Aanholt. I think he's got 2 and 2 now. He wiped out the Chelsea clean sheet, which was a killer blow for my Alonso at the weekend, but it just shows his attacking potential. We know what he can do. He scored loads of goals in the past, so I think he's a good option for the blank, especially as he's more than likely just going to be a 1 week punt if you're going to wildcard soon. Zaha, I think he played 45 minutes at the weekend, so he's fit again. He's probably a bit of a differential because he's been injured. He hasn't really been pulling up any trees this season, but we know what he can do. He's another player like Walcott who could easily hit 15 points if he gets a goal and assist, a clean sheet or whatever else, and bonus points. So Zaha's high on my watch list as well. Milivojevic takes penalties. He's got 5 or 6 goals this season, so you could, if you don't already have him, you get him in and bank on Palace getting a penalty. especially when Zaha's back in the team, there's more likelihood that Palace will win a penalty. So Milivojevic is very good from the spot. So when I see him stepping up, I'm always pretty confident he's going to score. He has got, I think he's got 2 goals from open play as well. So it's not just penalties with him. So he's another good option. Benteke then is another striking option for us for the blank. He's been getting assists more than goals this season, but since the turn of the year, his figures are pretty good. I put up a tweet about him a couple of days ago. He's probably been averaging about 5 or 6 points for that since the turn of the year because he's been getting so many assists. So he's another player who could do well. So he's another I'm looking at. So Van Aanholt, Zaha, Milivojevic and Benteke are the 4 players I'm interested in from Crystal Palace. So as I said, that's about 14 or 15 players that I'm looking at for my 2 free transfers this week. I mentioned already, I'm not planning to take any points hits, but keep an eye on my Twitter at FPL General towards the end of the week to see if that changes. I do have a feeling I will end up probably taking a -4, but I won't decide that until Friday. Now, I'm going to talk about transfers and captaincy. Now, things are going well for me this season. I mentioned this last week. I'm doing pretty well in a couple of mini leagues, in particular a couple of cash mini leagues. So I'm in the running to make a few bob this season, hopefully to help me pay off my wedding this summer. So I'm gonna start keeping my cards a little bit closer to my chest because I don't want my rivals, knowing my every move and being able to counteract what I'm doing. So I don't have 2 specific transfers in mind yet anyway this week, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow down the 14 or 15 players to 5 players. So of these 5 players, I'm likely to get 2 of these in this week, but I haven't decided which 2 yet. It just depends what way I want to go about it and which teams I want to back. First one is Stanislas at Bournemouth. As I mentioned, I've been very impressed with him. Bournemouth are home to West Brom, so I think he's a no-brainer for the watch list, and he's one I'm definitely considering heavily this week. Coleman, I mentioned as well, is another one. Butland. If I do decide to go for a goalkeeper for 31, I think Butland will probably be my pick. And obviously, if I get in Butland, I'll probably be unlikely to get the likes of Theo, because obviously, if they kind of don't correlate with each other. So Zaha is another. So again, I've got Schindler in defence. So should I get Zaha in, or should I back Huddersfield to get the clean sheet and maybe bring in the Huddersfield goalkeeper? I mean, I just need to consider all these things as the week goes on and decide which teams I'm going to back and which players I'm going to back. But Zaha is the 4th player I'm more interested in than the others, and Benteke is the 5th one. So again, as I say, I've got Schindler, but I do feel Palace can get something at Huddersfield. I'm probably not very confident about Schindler getting another clean sheet this week. So Palace players are definitely a team I'm looking at, probably more so than some of the other teams. So Zaha and Benteke are 2 players I'm very interested in. So as I say, that's the 5. I mean, it's only Tuesday now and I'm saying I'm going to pick 2 of these 5 players, but we know that can change by the weekend, depending on injury news and things like that. So goalkeeper, I'm looking at Butland. Defence, I'm looking at Coleman. And midfield, it's going to be Stanislas or Zaha. And if I opt for a striker, it's more than likely going to be Benteke. Captaincy, I don't think we even need a captaincy section this week. It's going to be Salah. He's probably going to be the highest percentage captaincy of all time, I would guess, in FPL. Just given the fixtures, given how good Salah's been this season and how highly owned he is. So I'm sure he's going to be over 90% captain this week. So it's going to take a brave manager to go against him. I mean, you could go Mane, Firmino, but for me, I think it's just a no-brainer to go with Salah, especially when everyone else is going to captain him. You don't want to miss out if he holds, which he more than likely will against Watford. Salah captain for me, no brainer. Last section, I'm going to touch on a couple of questions I got on Twitter today and yesterday, so I've got about 3 or 4. The first one is from Simon Ramsey. He's asking me, is Hennessy a good option? My straight answer is no. I think Hennessy, in my opinion, Hennessy is the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League, just from what I've seen this season. And Palace signed a guy as well, Diego Cavalieri as well. So obviously he's a good goalkeeper, and there's always a chance that he gets some game time between now and the end of the season. So there's always a slight worry that if you brought in Hennessy, that Roy will start Cavalieri then as well, which would just be such a waste of a transfer. So that would be enough to put me off him. Another reason is I actually don't think Palace will keep a clean sheet against Huddersfield. I expect Huddersfield to score at home against Palace, so I wouldn't bother with Hennessy. As I mentioned, the 3 I'm looking at are Pickford, Butland and Lawsell are the 3 goalkeepers I would choose from. Next question is from Justin Dye, who's our regular listener and he interacts quite a lot on Twitter. So he's asking me, what are the top 3 prospects in each position for blank game week 31? So rather than go through the top 3 prospects in each position, what I've done is I've put together a team of 11 for game week 31. So there's probably managers out there who are going to play free hit in 31. So this may be beneficial to you. So if I still had my free hit and I was using it this week, I'd be looking at something like Butland in goal, a back 3 of Van Dijk, Baines and Coleman. So I double up on the 2 Everton defenders to make the decision easier of which one to go for. I'll just get both. Midfield then, Salah, Shaqiri, Stanislas and Zaha. And up front I would have Firmino, Benteke, and I would probably stick with Wilson. But that's probably just because I've owned him and I just really want him to deliver. But Wilson, maybe Josh King might be a better option there up front. So maybe Firmino, Benteke, Josh King would be the front 3 I would go for if I was playing free hit this week. Obviously then you can put a few others on your bench, maybe the likes of Walcott, Mooney, even Van Aanholt, something like that. So that would be the 11 I'd be looking at. Butland, Van Dijk, Baines, Coleman, Salah, Shaqiri, Stanislas, Zaha, Firmino, Benteke and Josh King or Callum Wilson. I don't want to say which one. I've got Wilson and I'm hoping he's the one who outscores between the 2 of those this week. Final question I look at tonight is from Ian Wilson. Who are the top clean sheet shouts for game week 31? So if you're looking for defenders and goalkeepers, I'd be looking at Liverpool obviously. Huddersfield, I'm hopeful of Huddersfield getting a clean sheet, but again that's because I've got Schindler, and I may end up doubling up with Lawsell and just back Huddersfield, but I'll do some more research during the course of the week and decide whether I want to double up on Huddersfield. And Stoke, so I've mentioned Butland as well, so those are the 3 teams I'd be backing for clean sheets this week: Liverpool, Huddersfield and Stoke. So cheers as always for the questions. Is there anything else I want to mention before I wrap things up? Goalkeepers, obviously I mentioned the 3 goalkeepers, Butland, Pickford and Lawsell, but if you're not already tripled up on Liverpool, Karius is probably the best goalkeeping option this week. But again, most people are probably already tripled up on Liverpool, so that's why I didn't mention him earlier. But if you've only got 2 Liverpool players, don't rule out getting Karius in. He could well end up as the highest scoring goalkeeper in blank game week 31. He's actually been really good since he's nailed down the number 1 spot. He seems to have cut out his mistakes. I'm going to wrap this up. I don't know how long I've been recording for. Usually I time it, but I forgot to start the timer this week, so I'm guessing it's about a half an hour long. Follow me on Twitter at FPL General. You can get me on Instagram as well. I tend to post my team on Instagram every Friday as well. So if you use Instagram, give me a follow there as well. Follow the at 59th Minute Pod as well. So I usually post the podcast there first before I post it on my own Twitter account. Wherever you're listening, give it a like, give it a share. Retweets are always appreciated. Try to get more and more listeners every week. Spread the word. Give it a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Leave a comment. Leave a nice review on iTunes as well if you enjoyed it. Always welcome to feedback, positive and negative. Always looking to improve things. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to add in to the podcast. Anything you don't like about it. Anything you'd like me to change. So I already mentioned about guests. I'm gonna spend a bit more time this week trying to get my head around recording and editing, because what I do is I just record this and upload it straight away. I don't do any editing, so it's pretty easy to do it when it's just me, but things get more complicated when I'm recording with a guest who's in a different location. So I just need to spend some time and do some test runs with that to make sure it works before I go recording with somebody and wasting their time. So enjoy the rest of your week. Be patient. There's no need to make any transfers early this week. Wait till Friday. Don't be worrying about team value at this stage of the season. Wait for the press conferences on Friday and then make your decisions for game week 31. On Friday at 5 o'clock UK time, I'll be doing a live video on the Sportito Facebook page. So if you like the Sportito Facebook page, and keep an eye there at 5 o'clock on Friday, you can jump in and say hello, and any questions you have then as well for game week 31, I'll answer them there for you, and I'll also be able to give you an update on my own plans in that video as well. It's St. Patrick's Day on Saturday, so it's fallen on the perfect game week, blank game week 31, when there's only 4 fixtures. I'm planning to be in the pub at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning because I've missed the last 2 Paddy's Day because I've been working, so I've got making up to do this time. So I'm going to celebrate 3 Paddy's Day in the one day this weekend. So I'll be in the pub 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. I think the first kick-off on Saturday is not till 3 o'clock, so I'm going to have 4 hours of drinking done by then. So I'm very unlikely to catch any of the action this weekend. I'll probably end up watching Ireland, England in the rugby on Saturday instead. So again, as I say, it's a good game week for Paddy's Day to fall on, because I'm just looking forward to blank 31 being behind us and we can just move on then, and play my wild card in 32 and then make a final push for the top 500 in the last 5 or 6 game weeks. So enjoy the rest of your week and good luck in game week 31. And I'll be back next week with episode 5.